Nyquir Helton, a wide receiver from New Jersey, is dynamic. He's explosive, and Boston College has to land him today.
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is Locked On Boston College, your team every day. I am your host, AJ Black of Eagle Insider. I've been covering Boston College for over a decade. If you want the scoops, the analysis, and the news on your Boston College Eagles, you have found a daily Boston College podcast that does this 5 days a week. No better place to get it than here. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code Locked On College for $20 off for your first purchase. On today's show, I'm going to talk a little bit about the new discussion about the NCAA tournament expanding. I'll explain why I think expanding is a terrible idea. Even as a Boston College person, I'll explain why I think that. Secondly, BC loses a quarterback over the weekend. What's next? What happened? What's next? We'll get into that. And to kick it off, it's a big day for Boston College recruiting. A priority target is committing today. Will he pick BC? I'll explain where the Eagles stand on that. Now, let's jump in. Nyquer Helton is a class of 2026 wide receiver from Winslow Township in Atco, New Jersey. He has taken a couple official visits. He took one to BC. He was scheduled to take one to Pitt, but he did not do it. He had one to Syracuse, and he is committing on Friday evening. Now, I think he's having like a barbecue at his house, which sounds like kind of fun, but he's committing. He's a 6'0" wide receiver, and yes, he's a 3-star. But like I say with a lot of guys like this, look at the bigger picture. Let me tell you who else offered Nyquer Helton in the last year. He got an offer just 2 weeks ago from UNC. Bill Belichick wanted him. Georgia Tech offered him. Kentucky offered him. Nebraska offered him. Penn State offered him. Purdue offered him. Rutgers offered him. West Virginia offered him. Wisconsin offered him. Illinois offered him. Pitt offered him. Syracuse offered him. Yes, Indiana offered him. He has a huge offer list. And clearly he wanted to stay more towards the East Coast and had a great relationship with Savon Huggins and Darrell Wyatt because he's choosing between BC, Pitt, and Syracuse this evening. I love this recruit. He's 6 foot, decent size. He comes from a school, Winslow Township, that BC landed a commitment from last year. Marcus Upton, if you remember, was BC's highest rated recruit before Sterling Sanders got that bump, that they flipped from Syracuse to BC. So there's been good they've had good luck at that school, and they won a state title for the first time last year. It's a New Jersey program that's on the up and up. So it's a good school that you want to get involved with, and you get a talented wide receiver that could pick your school here. This is big. So what does BC have going for them? Well, I would say relationships. First of all, that is the bread and butter of BC recruiting, is the relationships and the potential for development from this staff. Darrell Wyatt is a longtime wide receivers coach. He is one of the better eyes for talent, I think, on this staff. He's done a great job of picking out wide receivers and making them into making BC's wide receiver room into something worth watching. It's been so long since BC's been able to have more than one guy, two guys. They've got a room now, and that a lot of that goes to Darrell Wyatt. The other piece is Savon Huggins. He is a New Jersey legend. He was, one of the best players to come out of that state, a 5-star that played at Rutgers. He knows that state better than anybody. And so I trust that Savon has, made these connections. Clearly they have a connection with Winslow Township that will land Helton. Now, the other piece that I think is really important too is the official visits. His first official visit was Syracuse. They did the usual Syracuse visit where they throw him in front of a car. They put cars on the, I'm not going to judge, but I'm judging a little bit. It's very superficial. If you want cars, you can go to Syracuse, I guess. That's what they're saying. He did that. Then he came to BC. He got the trip. He went to the seaport. They did all the big pieces of their official visits that they do, which don't involve putting cars on Alumni Stadium. I can tell you that. They did that. And then Pitt never happened. It was he bumped his BC schedule, his BC visit up where Pitt was supposed to be, and then canceled Pitt. To me, that is big. Because if you don't even make that visit and you cancel it, that usually shows that you're in good shape for a recruit. Like usually when a recruit can't stops where they're at, that like we just saw with Jordan Rodriguez. Jordan Rodriguez had another official visit set up. He stopped it and picked BC. So I look at Nyquer Helton, and BC has 3 wide receivers right now. They have Alex Voss from North Carolina. They have DJ Biggins from Connecticut, and they have Kelvin Brown from Florida, the speedster, but kind of under the radar type of kid, right? Who's just rated an 85, by the way. So I look at Nyquer Helton, and I know a lot of you folks are in that. He's only a 3-star, but again, I just said what his offer list is. What do you want? Do you want is the ranking more important than the offer list? Because if you got to pick one here. Like if you get a 4-star, that's great because the scouts see him, but also offer lists are important too because that means a lot of other schools think he's really good, and I think he's really good. So this is a guy I look at and I say, wow, this could be your wide receiver number 1 in this class. Like all the other guys that you've landed, Brown, Voss, Biggins, or, they've got smaller offer lists. They could be more talented. We'll have to wait to see when they get to the college ranks. But just based off of, talent and, offers and things like that, it's got to be Helton at this point. So he's that important. But what is going against them? Syracuse lurking is always scary because I don't know what Fran Brown is. He's recruiting and he goes out there. I love his phrasing that, we're trying to make our men better and ready for after school. And then they have official visits and it's all trucks and cars. Okay. So there's clearly a piece there that, that Syracuse is using money and cars and physical things to sell their school much more than BC is. And for some folks, that could be a good selling point. And I'm not, I'm judging it, but also I understand that there's people out there that would fall for it. I'm going to say that. So that could happen. But where does Helton land on all this? That is what the biggest question is. Now he has his barbecue. It's at, he put it up on Instagram. So they're going to have their announcement. We'll get to see who he picks. And this would be a nice get for BC. Will he be a guy that if he does pick BC, he's the kind of guy that gets a bump? He could. His numbers from his junior year were good, but maybe a big explosive year could make it go up even more. But I think right now I would say, he's probably going to stick it around as being a 3-star recruit. So there's that. Now, let's change the topic in just a moment. Furian Inferrera no longer committed to BC. He's off to Minnesota. I'll explain what happened. I'll get into what BC is looking for next and why that is going to be a recruitment that's going to be worth watching. We'll get into all of that in just a moment. Have you ever decided at the last minute to head to a ball game with friends or family? Maybe it's game day and you suddenly realize you want to be in the stand. That's exactly where Game Time comes in. It's the easiest way to grab last minute tickets without the stress. With the money you save on tickets, you can splurge on food, drinks, merch, or even invite a bigger group to come with you. Game Time makes it all possible. Game Time makes buying tickets fast and simple. Prices on the app actually drop the closer you get to the first pitch, and they've got incredible last minute deals. Clear views, seat views, and a lowest price guarantee that takes the worry out of buying. I used it the other day. I had friends that wanted to come to the Woo Sox along with me. Because it was Roman Anthony's last game, or was going to be his last game. There were no tickets available, but I found them on Game Time, got them cheap, got them right away, and we all got to go watch his final game. Now, take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Lowest last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. This is Locked On Boston College. I am your host, AJ Black of Eagle Insider, and I want to thank every one of you that have made Locked On Boston College your first listen this morning. If you waited and got yesterday's episode now, or you're dying to get my show, I want to thank each and every one of you. You're the lifeblood of the show, and I thank each and every one of you who have listened to all 5 episodes this week. Next, let's get into the latest. I didn't get into this because I had so much official visit and commitment talks to get into, but it's been something that's been in the works for a while. Furian Inferrera of Mater Day, and I will butcher it to the day I die, California, has flipped his commit. He has moved on and committed to Minnesota. This has been something in the works for a while. Both him and BC, it wasn't working out, so they moved on. That's it. It wasn't a flip. I saw a bunch of sites saying it was a flip. It was not a flip. And it was not a decommitment either. It was just a mutual parting. They just decided it wasn't working out. I don't know the details of why, but that's it. Now that he's gone, now that he has moved on, what does BC have to do next? They're going for one quarterback in the class of 2027. There's a potential they're going for two in class of 2026. So if they do land Femi Babalola next week and he's committing on June 30th, they're going to definitely probably going for one next year. And as I've mentioned on previous episodes, my everydayers heard this already. There's a couple names already that you need to watch for because they are very, focused on a few names. The first is Logan Flaherty of Port Charlotte, Florida, a 3-star recruit who has offers from all the schools in the South, like Louisville, Florida, Florida State, Miami, like you name it down there, they've offered him. He was up for an unofficial visit to throw and play, to hang out with staff and talk to the staff just last week. But he's a hot commodity. He is a very hot commodity. He was just at Illinois like 2 days after that. He's doing a grand tour of the it seems like of the country. And he's going to be racking up offers. So he's going to be a tough one. But if you're into getting quarterbacks that have huge offer lists, good size, I think he's like 6'3". Clearly he's getting a lot of good attention. This is the kind of quarterback you want to get. This is the kind of quarterback that, is going to have a big year probably in high school and see his stock continue to soar. So, Jonathan DiBiaso, the defensive quarterbacks coach, sorry. He's made Flaherty a priority, having him up, and clearly they were doing this while Inferrera had not moved on yet. Like he was still, he had the BC football in his profile when this was happening. So that tells you that BC was clearly moving on to something else. The other name, Will Menzel from Arizona. He's another one with a good offer list. Different good, like in terms of offers. He has, other schools, I think it was like Kansas State, Oklahoma State. There's more like Western schools because he's from Arizona, right? Like, but he's got good size on him. I think he's like 6'2". I'm pulling him up right now. 6'3". 6'3". Like Bill O'Brien has the type of quarterback he wants. Tommy Castellanos was not it. Tommy Castellanos at 5'8", 5'9" was not what he's looking for. He likes these 6'3" guys. The guys like, Shaker Isaac's a little bit on the shorter side. But he, it's clear that like if he can get a bigger quarterback that has that like typical like Tom Brady, Matt Ryan type size, he's going to go for it as much as he can. Now, where BC goes from here, they're going to continue, I'm sure, to look at class of 2027 recruits. You can't just throw all your coins into one bin here. You have to be able to look around, try to see where those connections are going. But I got to say, getting both of those guys, Menzel and Flaherty, were on campus is big. Remember, it's not an official visit. It means that they came on their own accord, that they came because they were interested in the school. So there's something that you can say about the interest in these two recruits, that BC is heading up the right trail. And so, again, I think BC is going to go for one quarterback here. And it's an important, any year you want to get a good quarterback, right? And BC has, to their credit, over the last year and a half, has done an excellent job of revamping that room. You went from having Tommy Castellanos and maybe Grayson James, and then nobody, to, and that's not a knock on Jacoby Robinson, but he wasn't going to work here. He's at Southern Miss now. To having, you have 3 right now that could play. I mean, Shaker Isaac, you don't want to have to play, but he could play soon if you needed him to. He's getting there. To next year, where you have DJ Bordeaux and hopefully Femi Babalola. Like now you're up to like 4 or 5 because Grayson James will be gone after next year. So you're building this depth. That is what makes a good program. That is what makes your team take that next step. I've always said there's two things that a good football team needs more than anything. It's good depth and talent in the trenches on both the offensive and defensive line and good quarterback play. If you have those two, you can win. You can get talented wide receivers and good running backs and all that stuff. That's important in its own way, but critically, I think a good quarterback can help you win at the college level. And being good in the trenches is dire for it. I mean, vital for a team. So that one piece right now, that quarterback position has been vital for BC and something that they've done a good job. Now, has it been a straight line to what they were looking for? No. We saw Corin Berry decommit. We've seen, Furian Inferrera leave. Like, it isn't a one-way street here. It does take turns. So we'll have to wait to see how the class of 2026 ends up, how the class of 27 starts to look. But I would not be surprised if we start to hear once we're in a recruiting dead period right now, that BC has a few more visitors come too. I think it goes until like mid-July, and I believe there's a week between practice and that dead period that people can be here. So we'll have to wait to see. I think it's going to be an interesting recruitment to watch. But in the end, in Ferrara, it just didn't work out. BC moves on. We see what happens next. Speaking of moves, the NCAA tournament could be expanding. I think it's a terrible idea, and I don't even care that BC hasn't been in it for a whole long time. I'll explain what I mean in just a moment. Welcome back. This is Locked On Boston College. I am your host, AJ Black of Eagle Insider. When you're done with this episode, check out Locked On Celtics. The Celtics moves have been crazy lately, and John Corrales has everything. And I like my Celtics, but some of these other guys, the guys they're bringing in, I don't know about. John Corrales knows it all. And if you want to know more about your Celtics, go check it out on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Now, let's talk a little basketball. Now, the NCAA is about to vote to expand the NCAA tournament to 72 teams. And this raises a lot of questions. It was at 68 before, and just going to it gets bigger. I remember when it was 61. I was on Locked On ACC just earlier this week, and I said I hate it. I hate because I know where they're coming from. The NCAA just wants more content. They want to make more games because more games will, put more food in the trough for all us little piggies that will just devour everything NCAA related. And for Boston College, yeah, it would make it a little more easy for them to get into the tournament when they have teams that are more on that line. But still, I'm talking from a national perspective. I'm talking about, what is good for the sport itself. And I think this is terrible. Because the more you add, the more games you add, the more you water down the product. The more that people are not going to care about these things. I said this on Locked On ACC. I will self-admit that I am a wrestling fan. I make jokes on it. You guys have heard me do it. And I watch it with my almost 7-year-old. We love watching it. It's just something we bond over. Now, when I was a kid, when I was in high school, you had one option. You could watch Raw or Nitro, and it was like 2 hours, but they all interloped. So you only had like 3 hours of wrestling each week. It was all Mondays, and it was done. You were done unless there was a pay-per-view. One shop done. When I got back into it a couple years ago, it now turned into 3 hours of Raw, AEW for 2 hours, SmackDown for 2 hours. You had NXT. I mean, there was so much content. I couldn't take it. And so I gave up on a lot of it because it just wasn't enough time in my day to watch it. I think of the same thing with college basketball. When you continue to build this, there's going to be so much of this that people are going to tune out because it is too much. You make it special by keeping it where it is right now. The amount of games that you have, you've already expanded it a couple times already. You don't need to keep doing it because those games, when you start bringing in watered out teams, you're going to make the games less and less exciting. And the drama of Selection Sunday is going to shrink. And the interest in these games is going to die because you're going to put these games on what? Court TV or TBS or just on the app or whatever. There's no point to any of this. In the people that are saying, what about those teams that got gypped that were on the bubble? Well, you know what? There's been bubble teams for as long as I can think of it. And there's going to be more bubble teams, even if you expand it, because what's going to happen when you expand the bubble? I mean, expand the tournament. The teams that are at 73, 74, 75, they're going to complain. And then what happens next? You expand again. I don't like this hamster wheel we're on right now, where you get, one or two teams that complain about it. The media team, the media rights crew, they're seeing like more games. And then we continue to expand. I don't need any of this. I don't think who is asking for this? Who is asking for the NCAA tournament to get bigger? Fans aren't. Even the teams that are getting bumped out on the bubble, I would guess most of them don't want it to happen. It's the people that hold the media rights. They're the only ones that care. And for that, I don't think any fan should care what they think because they're loaded. They have all the money in the world. Why do you care what they think? Okay? It's what's best for the product. What's best for us as fans that want to watch this and say, this is the best thing that I could be watching right now. And if you keep adding teams, just look at college baseball this year. The SEC had 13 teams out of 17 that made that tournament. What if they start doing that in basketball? Who the heck wants to watch the 13th ranked SEC team get into this tournament because that's how things are now? No one's asking for that. It's not what's good for the sport. Okay? Keep it the way it is. Do not. And I'm saying this right now, knowing that the people in charge are doing exactly opposite of what I'm yelling and screaming about right now. They are not listening to anything I say. Okay. Now, from a BC perspective, yes, it makes it that much better, closer. The BC could make a tournament. But how close has BC been? There's been that 1 year with Kai Bowman. I think they were the last team out that they may have made it that year. But what makes this special for BC if you are that last team? And just knowing in the back of your mind that 5 years ago you would have never have made it. And to put it more bluntly, the teams right now aren't even close, even if they do that. Like this, where BC was last year, they're not close. The year before, closer, but still not there. This year, we'll have to wait and see. But what I'm saying is, this is not good for BC either. Like I just don't think anyone cares. Like no one wants this. Don't do it, NCAA. Don't. All right. Thank you all for listening. This is AJ Black of Eagle Insider. This is our 5th show this week. If you've not done so already, check out all 4 other episodes. I talk about commitments. I talk about recruiting. We talk about everything that's going on with BC sports. You got to check that out. Follow me on Twitter at AJBlack247. Check me out on Instagram and on TikTok. I'm everywhere. You can find me, get all your BC news and details there. I'll be back again on Monday. We'll talk Nyquer Helton. Did he commit to BC? I'll have all the latest on that. We'll talk about Femi Babalola's pending commitment and where he chooses. We'll have a whole lot to talk about here on Locked On Boston College, your team every day.